You are listening to Ask the Answers podcast. Join me, Adele, as I uncover the knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment the psychic world has to offer. Let's begin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ask the Answers podcast with myself, Adele. And on today's show, we've got a very interesting guy lined up for you. I've been hearing all about him and some of his experiences that I've seen at a glance or I've heard of through other people, but I want to hear it from himself because I believe he's called the Premonition Man. But let's find out why. Let's welcome lovely Chris to the show. Hello, Chris.
Hi, hey, welcome.
How are you today?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, I'm excited because it sounds like you've got lots to share with everybody that's listening.
Yeah, I mean today's a busy day.
Yeah. What's it like in the day of Chris? What do you get up to from day to day?
I guess no 2 days are the same.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a family
Mm-hmm.
with children and grandchildren, so they keep you busy.
Yeah.
There's other unusual, strange things I get up to, like podcasts. I've got another one this evening at 5 o'clock to do for somebody in New York. So,
wow.
Hence a New York background.
Yeah, I love it. So your work takes you internationally?
Yeah, I mean, there are countries I've not visited, but I've visited at least half of them, I think, doing this.
So you definitely like traveling then?
Well, not so much anymore, but I've been doing this for, 45 years-ish. So, you know, there's a lot of places you can visit in 45 years.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
when did it all start for you? When did you have this, when did you realize you had the gift?
Yeah, it's really difficult, if you're being really honest, to pin it down. Because when you're young and you're growing up, first of all, you don't understand things in the same way as you do when you get to my age now.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you've got little experiences which you think, did that really happen? Or am I imagining that? Or did I really see that? And you know, when you're going to school and in your teens, and then you get married and you got families coming, you don't have so much time to focus on it all. So very briefly, when I was born, I had a heart defect. And when I was born, it was inoperable. You know, I wasn't going to last very long. I had an operation when I was 9, which was a pioneering open heart surgery. And I suppose there were little tiny things that didn't make sense then, because I was in hospital for best part of 5 months.
Wow.
And when I came round from the anaesthetic, I was in an oxygen tent. And I can remember it like yesterday. Even, you know, it was a long time ago and I was only 9 years old. And it was almost as if I wasn't alone in there. And of course, there's nobody there. I mean, obviously the hospital ward's got staff, but you're in a plastic bubble. There's nobody in there with you. But so I dismissed it. There's nobody there with me. Stupid, crazy, you know, imagination, you know, it's an effect of the anesthetic, you know, which at that stage, it really could have been that. And as I was going through my teens into my 20s, a couple of things happened, which I realize, I think now, the significance. And 2 things happened shortly after one another. And I saw UFOs in the sky.
Wow.
Now, I'd always said to myself, now remember, I grew up in the 60s, 50s and 60s. Doctor Who was on television. You know, we were all suddenly exposed to time travelers, and
Yeah.
you know, and I mean that was my favorite program, and it still is, I think, of all time. So there is the tendency to have imaginary events, but these two things, no. I'd promised myself if I ever saw anything, I would get as many people out to watch it as I could. And the first one I saw was in August 1971. I'd come home from work, and there was this kind of, I mean, it's only tiny, but it's like a boat floating around. And I'm thinking, what on earth is that? What did I do? I knocked on every door on the village green. And we ended up with 50 or 60 people out on the green watching this thing for 2.5, 3 hours.
What did people think it was?
I had no idea what it was, but I knew it didn't come from here.
Yeah.
Because we don't have flying boats, you know. I mean, how high it was, we don't know.
But you could clearly see that it was the shape of a boat.
It literally was like the shape of a boat. Yeah. And of course it came close and it went away, and it came close and it went away. And the local newspaper came up and tried to take a picture of it, and they made a newspaper story about it. And I felt really confident from that point on, because 50 or 60 people were with me. You know, it wasn't just me. It was many people. And of course, the ridicule from the millions of people on the planet, there's that nonsense. Okay, that's all right. You didn't see it. We did. You know. And then again in the October, I saw another one. I was with a friend of mine. At the time, I was repairing televisions and fitting aerials on roofs, and you know, that kind of electrical work. And we were on a roof north of Luton. And I don't know why I looked up, but I looked up and I saw this thing come across the sky, and then it stopped dead. So it's like, whoop, and stopped. Now, aeroplanes don't suddenly stop from a great speed. And Malcolm and I reported it to the police, and we phoned the local air traffic people, and they said they didn't have any other reports of it, but we did it straight away. That night on the television, there it was, 80 miles from me, a film crew filming something completely different filmed it. Now, they didn't film all of it that I saw. They filmed it from where it was stationary above their heads, somewhere over in Oxfordshire. I think they were like about 80 miles from where we were, but it's where it stopped. Now, obviously, you can do a million things with thinking about that, and I'm not going to go into that. Let people make up their own minds. But that was shown on television. Malcolm and I then were interviewed by the Royal Air Force, and we were interviewed twice. And one of the things that they wanted to do, which they did, we were up for it. They took us back where we saw it and made some measurements. They got these fancy things measuring angles in the sky, and they went away, and they came back and interviewed us separately some months later. And I'll never forget what the two guys said to me. They said, because I asked them, I said, you know, will that be shown on television again? You know, is there any way I can get, you know, some pictures of it? Or and they said that will never be seen again for at least 50 years.
Gosh. Wow. And did they show these videos or photos?
Well, I tracked it down after 50 years. I found out where the archive of the film was. I contacted the archives at Lincoln University,
Mm-hmm.
And I said, have you still got the film? And they said, we don't know. You know, all that stuff came here, but we don't know if we've still got it. I said, well, would you have a look?
Mm-hmm.
And ever such a nice man. He said, yes, I'll call you back but it was weeks before they called me back. He said, we've still got the original 16mm film. I said, if I pay you, will you scan it in high definition? And he said, oh, I don't know if we can do that. Anyway, he got back to me and he said £270 or something it was. I said, done. If I can have a copy of it, done.
Yeah.
Well, it's now on their website. It's now on the Lincoln University website in HD for everybody to see. Now, I felt at the time that, and people were asking me, why did you look up? And I felt that I was kind of meant to look up, you know, because we were doing something. We're not sitting there looking around in the sky. We're working. And it was one of the questions that the RAF asked me, you know, what made you look up at that moment? Because if I hadn't, it would have gone and I wouldn't have seen it where it had stopped. I wouldn't have looked over there. So then I began to question it and I began to wonder, but this is 1971 and we've just got a baby and there's a million other things to do. And lots of things happened since then.
Out of interest, what's your definition of like a UFO? You know,
well, something you can't explain. And for me, something you can't explain has to do something we can't explain as well. I mean, just because there's a light in the sky moving around, it could be anything. But when you see something traveling at tens of thousands of miles an hour, and the RAF people who did all the measurements reckoned it was doing in excess of 70,000 miles an hour. But it traveled 100 miles nearly in 3 seconds. Do the sums. Do the math. You know, whoa. But then to stop dead. And of course, we've got a film of it stopped dead. And then, of course, you got the commentary, which if anyone wants to see it, can see it. We've got the commentary of the film crew who are absolutely stunned by what they've seen and filmed, you know, and they say that, you know, it must have passed over our heads and stopped. Well, it did, because we saw it do that. But we also saw it come back the other way. Fortunately for us, they filmed it coming back the other way. And it was spinning. Now, what have we got today? Secret or otherwise, that can do tens of thousands of miles an hour and stop instantly. Can't have people in it. Not us, people like us. We just mush. G-forces would pull you into cells. I mean, you know. So
do you think it is like the films, that they are proper aliens in there? Do you know what we make believe in our heads, or from the film directors, or what we see on films? Do you think it's like that? Do you think it is aliens in there?
I don't know whether
aliens, I don't know what they are.
know. Yeah, I don't know whether aliens would be in all of them, because aliens are not in all of the ones we send, are they? We send them all over the universe, but there's no us in them. But of course, we have sent us to the moon, and we have sent us to outer space. So I'm assuming that some of them are reconnaissance craft. But since then, I have met them, and I have been in one, and you know, as hard as it is to believe for me, that what is the other explanation? I mean, I'll briefly tell you one of the instances that nobody can explain, not even the people I work for in the American government after 9/11. They know the story, they've seen the evidence, they can't explain it either. I was booked in to have an operation at the Luton and Dunstable Hospital. I'd torn my diaphragm by carrying a really heavy boxes, and somehow where the esophagus comes through, it had torn.
Oh gosh.
So I'm going to have an operation. It's all been arranged. And about 6, I'm on a waiting list, so it's going to be like 3 months before I'm going to get it. But it's not life-threatening, but it could become that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, let's say 6 weeks before I was due to have it. And 3 weeks before I knew when I was going to have it. I had a dream that I was taken up in a spacecraft, operated on, and they fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just a dream, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Just a dream. I wake up from the dream, but on the inside of my arm here were 3 like drill holes with a big bruise that had very clearly defined edges like a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my wife about the dream, and we looked at my arm, and I went to the doctors. And I went to the GP and I showed it to him, Dr. Kurt, and he looked at it and he said, I've never seen anything like that. Where on earth did you sleep? Because I told him it wasn't there when I went to bed. It was there when I woke up. And I said, nowhere that anything like that could happen.
Your wife didn't pinch you for snoring.
Well, what with 3 drill holes? I mean, if it was a pinch mark, yeah. But this was like if you draw a triangle and draw 3 little dots in it, that's what it was.
Wow.
I took a picture of it, but can't find it anywhere. But anyway, okay, so there's 3 funny marks on my arm. Can't explain them. Had a dream that they repaired me. Forgot all about it. Get to the hospital. Go in, get checked in, get all the things they do before an operation, sit outside the waiting, go into the operating theatre. Dr. Jane is there and the other team are there. He said, can you get on the operating table by yourself? Well, this was, 20 years ago. So yeah. I climbed up there and I laid down. And he said to me, and I'm never, ever, ever going to forget the words. Just before we put you to sleep, I'm going to make a few little marks on your tummy where we need to go. Mm-hmm. And I said, fine. So he then picked up some kind of ultrasound scanner or whatever it was, and he put it across my tummy, and he looked strange. He called over another doctor. I don't know who it was. I presume it's a doctor, all gowned up, ready. They're going to do an operation. Mm-hmm. And he looked at it, and then he got angry. Mr. Robinson, why didn't you cancel this appointment and tell us you've already had the surgery? I was dumbstruck. What? He said, why didn't you tell us? It's already been done. Somebody else, I was kind of in shock because I haven't been to any hospital and had any operation. I said, I haven't had it. That's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. He said, don't tell me that, he said, because I can see where it's been done. Gosh. And whoever did it made a wonderfully, and that's the word he used, neat job of it. And then I thought, oh my goodness, my dream. Go figure that one out. And of course, I don't know what really happened. I know that I didn't get the hospital to do the operation because they said it was already done. I know there were marks on my arm that couldn't have got there any way that I knew. And I know I had the dream.
So was this freaking you out by this point?
That day it was. I can tell you that day it was, because you're really gonna. I'm a sensible person. You scratch your head. You've now, okay, so you had the dream. It's a dream. Funny marks on your arm you can't explain. Don't know what that is, but don't know. Put it to one side. But now you're on an operating table and they're telling you you've already had it done. And that's in my notes at the hospital. And of course, they put in there that I wasted their time. So every time I go back to the hospital, I get questioned by whoever I'm seeing about what happened then.
God.
It's just
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it is. Yeah. But so anyway, so let's jump right back long before that. Forget the aliens. That's weird. You don't want to tell too many people about that. 1986, my grandmother was in hospital and she had cancer. And I went to see her. And she was in a cancer ward at the Mount Vernon Hospital in Northwood in Middlesex. And she was there for some kind of blood transfusion and something, but she wasn't expected to die just yet.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't. So I didn't go there planning to talk about that. When I got there, she sat me down on the side of the bed and she said to me, Christopher. And I thought, oh, what's coming now? Because when my nan said, Christopher, you knew you were in trouble. Yes, Nan. And then she said, and these are kind of words that I'll never, ever forget. You always told me you believed that when my time comes, I will meet your grandfather again. Mm-hmm. And I said, yes. It's a belief. Mm-hmm. I do believe it. Mm-hmm. I did believe it. Now I know it. But at the time, I believed it. 1986. And she said, well, every time I close my eyes, I see him standing at the bottom of the bed with his arms out saying, Dora, come with me. What should I do? Oh, ask me something easy, Nan. I said, I don't know what you should do. She said, should I tell him I'm ready to go with him? And I said, I can't tell you to do that. Only you can make up a decision like that. And I'm thinking, is she, she's on morphine, and she's a little bit out there, spaced out, was my grandfather really there? And it's all going through my head. And I said, I don't know. I said, the only thing I can tell you, Nan, is I will tell you what I would do, knowing the position you're in and knowing how much you've longed for years to see my grandfather again, your husband again. I would probably tell him I'm ready.
Yeah.
That's what if that happened to me tomorrow and I was in that situation and my wife or somebody was there, I'd say I'm ready. Because I'm not one of these people who sees the point of suffering for another 6 months in the most agonizing pain when the end result is the same. Anyway, so I said, I can't tell you what to do, but that's probably what I would do. So we talked a bit longer and she said, I think I'd like to be left alone now. So I said, all right, Nan, I'll see you when you come home, because we were expecting a home. She wasn't ready to, medically, she wasn't ready to go. Now, I got through 2 sets of double doors leaving the ward at Mount Vernon Cancer Unit. And a nurse came running after me. Hello, come. And I said, she said, you've just visited your grandmother. I said, yes. She said, she's just died. She's just gone. And we're not expecting that. And I said, I'm sorry, she was fine. She said, yes, she was fine. Did she say anything? Did you give her anything? And I said, no. I didn't go into the conversation. And I'm a bit more shocked, now than I have been probably ever before. And I said, no, I didn't give her anything. I didn't say anything to her. She said, well, would you like to come back and see her? And I said, no. I said, I saw her when she was alive 5 minutes ago. And right now, I don't think, if what you're saying is right, and I believe you, I don't need to come back and see her. And anyway, from pretty much that night on, she's been a guide to me. She's told me things that were going to happen. things were going to happen to our family, to me, around me, things that the police needed to know about crimes and terrorism. She's bought other people who were going to be the victims of crimes, and this is the strange bit, were going to be the victims of crimes.
Wow.
So I've spoken to the people before they died and reported it to the police before they died. And of course that got police interested in me very quickly.
Mm.
And that's the first book about me is called The Dream Detective. And anybody wants to read that, they can. It's on Amazon. I think it's on Kindle. You can look it up.
What was it called again, Chris?
The Dream Detective.
Okay.
I don't think I've got a copy of it here. But I mean, what have I got here?
So is that you went into quite soon into your sort of career helping the police, or did that come sort of later on in
Right, I'll tell you how that started. So here is one book where there's a whole chapter about me. That was a television series, and I was in the first episode, the first person, and I was in one of the later. I'll just see if I can find a picture of me. There you go. A long time ago.
Ah.
And that was, I don't know when that was. I think that was 1995.
Mm-hmm.
But so my grandmother's talking to me and telling me things that really were very useful and helpful, and I needed to know, and people around me needed to know.
Mm.
So there were lots of things I said to the police because I had lots of police friends.
Right.
I'd worked with them on other things, nothing to do with spirits or psychics or aliens or anything. So I knew lots of police officers, and there were lots of things that I told them from time to time individually that made them really worry about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But the real change was December the 21st, 1988. And that morning, I had to be at the Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand to meet 2 Scotland Yard officers over something nothing to do with any of this. And I met them. We did what we had to do. And then we went and had a drink afterwards. There used to be a bar across the street called the Printer's Pie. I don't know if it's still there. Probably not. Maybe it is. And I'm sitting there with these 2 officers who I got to know probably over 3 years, over 2.5 years anyway. And I told them what I dreamt the night before. I said, my dream last night was a bomb placed on a plane at London Airport. I said, and I've seen lots of details about the people who placed the bomb there, how they put it there. And I want to make a statement. And Chris Watt, who was a sergeant at the time, said to me, shouldn't make a statement, Chris. I said, why? He said, well, you just imagine. He said, if something like this happened today, or even in the near future, and you've made a statement about it, he said, you will, how did he put it? You will find people crawling out of a woodwork you don't even know exists.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to want to know how you knew.
Mm.
And they are not going to believe you dreamt it. Are you sure you want to make a statement? I said, yes. I said, I've seen enough now in my life to know that this is being shown to me for a reason. So we made a statement. And in the statement, I don't know if it was him or his inspector who was with us, asked me, just as a kind of passing question, what colour was the plane? I said, oh, that's easy. I said, it's a blue and white 747. And they said, really? I said, yes. I said, yes, it's a blue and white 747. I said, and it blows up tonight and kills everybody in it. Well, that night was Lockerbie. Mm-hmm. So just think about that. My life changed forever. Absolutely changed forever. I got home from London just before, I probably got home about 6:30. Watching the television, just about 7 o'clock, it came on the screen, news flash. My wife said to me, oh no. I said, oh yes. 20 minutes later, the phone rang. A police officer from Luton, who I knew very, very well. He said, Chris, what have you done? He said, I've had the yard on the phone. They would come up and get you tonight. And I've managed to talk them out of doing that. If you promise you will be at the yard in the morning, Scotland Yard, at 9 o'clock. And I said, Paul, you can tell them I will be at Scotland Yard at 9 o'clock in the morning. I took a toothbrush and some clean clothes because I thought this changes forever. You cannot tell the police of a major terrorist incident like that without getting severe questioning at the very least. And when I got to Scotland Yard, they took me up the back stairs, 2 coppers. Fortunately, I knew them both. I didn't go up in the lift. I'd never been through. I've been in the lift lots of times, but there were these kind of back stairs, a fire escape, I suppose. And we were walking up the stairs. I think we went to the 5th or 6th floor. And on the way up, one of them said to me, you could be a security risk. And I said, yeah, I guess I could. And the other one looked at me and he said, on the other hand, you could be an incredible security asset. And I said, yeah, I guess I could be that too. So anyway, that was the big shift with the police. And of course, all of that story is in a dozen television documentaries about me, in the book, The Dream Detective, and the latest book that 2 people wrote about me called The Premonition Man. That's the latest one.
Do you think they listened to you the first time round about saying about there's going to be a bomb, that it would have prevented it? Do you think you were given
we discussed what to do. And one of them, his name was Chris Watt, he said to me, we can't stop or search every blue and white 747 on the strength of your dream. And I said, no, I guess you can't. And he said to me, why do you think you've been told, because it hadn't happened yet, if this is going to happen, why do you think you've been told? I said, so that you get confidence in me for the next big one, or the next one, or the next one. Because you've got to start somewhere. And, you know, I mean, I was probably being delusional because I'm thinking, you know, I could be this person who can stop most of the terrorist attacks. If this is really true and this plane really does blow up, you know, where does it take me? Where does it lead me? But more importantly, where does it lead the human race? You know, if people can be this helpful, you know, and of course I've gone on to do lots of things, saved some, caught some, not able to save them all. You know, 9/11, I really tried to stop that. You know, I was in the United States with people doing experiments trying to prove what I was saying was real in the August before the September. I was there for a month. With all sorts of secret people. And there is a book written about that by the university professor That's called the God experiments. And do you know what? I haven't prepared for this very well, have I?
how
That, you know, you can
do
take it.
you how do you deal with it emotionally? Big things like that. How do you come to terms with that when you knew it before it even happened? And sometimes you can't say
Lockerbie,
can't change it.
Lockerbie shook me, or shook my understanding of reality, because there's more to that story. When we saw the plane laying in the field, made of the seas, I thought, I've been on that plane. And I went through some photographs that I'd taken earlier that year. I went with a whole group of people that I knew to the National Association of Broadcasters exhibition in Las Vegas in April or May. And that's the plane we flew to Seattle on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's really starting to make me boggle now, because when we were taxiing to take off at Heathrow on that day, I saw a flash under the floor of the plane. We're sitting there and we're all ready to go, and it's like somebody flashed a flash gun. And I said to the people around me, did you just see a flash on the floor? We called a stewardess over and said, we just seen some kind of flash of light on the floor. She stamped on the floor and she said, I assure you there's nothing wrong with the floor. And we forgot about it. Mm-hmm. But the three people that were closest to me, we were seating, obviously I know these people, they remembered that. So did I. And they said, what was that about? You were actually in the plane and you saw the and of course we did I've done it with some people in America who work with the government. We looked at a seating plan for that plane. Mm-hmm. And where we were seated across the aisle, so we were in a center row underneath the floor of, I don't know if it's, I can't remember, row 24 or something. That's where the bomb was. Now, how can I see a flash of explosion in the, must have been the April, because I was there for their birthday, yet it doesn't blow up until December the 21st. Mm-hmm. How does that work? What does that tell us about the nature of our universe? I mean, it's just extraordinary. And of course, I went on to, most of it's public knowledge. There are lots of documentary films about my life on the internet that have been shown on television across the world. Mm-hmm. And the bottom line is, this is really happening. Psychic phenomena, psychic ability, seeing the future in some way we can't really understand, is real. Happens all the time.
People listening are probably thinking, have you got anything about the future? Is there anything that you've picked up already about things that people need to be aware of?
What that hasn't happened yet. What I'm not seeing is a nuclear war.
Well, that's good to know.
That's good to know. People ask me, people in positions of authority ask me, have I seen that yet? No, I haven't. And I honestly believe I would have done.
Yeah.
Because some of the other things I've seen, I mean, I saw COVID. I mean, that was, and that was one of the most recent, really extraordinary ones.
And again, these are premonitions, these are dreams. This is your main sort of.
No, it's not always a dream. Now, this is what I think people watching this will be interested in. When you suddenly have deja vu of something, or you feel something's going to happen, and it turns out to happen, through experiments that I've done for over 30 years, keeping accurate records, not just with me, but with other people as well, you can usually go back and find a note of it in a dream that people had long forgotten. So you'll have the dream, you'll forget all about it. Maybe you won't fully understand it, but later on, it comes through to you as a psychic impression. I mean, with Ask the Answer, I've got up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I've had a dream that somebody is about to call me, and I've got a message for them, and I've actually done this. I don't do it all the time. It happens because I think, to hell with it. I need to go to sleep.
Yeah, of course.
I have got up, and I'm thinking of one particular lady. And I got up and I got dressed and I came in here and I logged in, and she called me, and she asked me a question, and it was about her mother. I said, I know what's just happened to your mother. I said, and I can describe her house. So I gave her a description of the street and the house and her mother. I said, and she wants you to know that she's all right. And that was worth doing for me, because she'd just got home from the hospital when she phoned Ask the Answer. See if anybody could give her some comfort or a message. I told her where she was, what happened, and of course it doesn't happen all the time. It's a mistake to think you are always going to get something like that when you want to get it. But that doesn't negate the reality that you could get it, or that somebody does get it.
Do you think we should listen to our dreams more? Do you think that lots of us could tap into that dream energy and prevent things in our own lives, or do you think you have to have that special gift to be able to do it?
My experience, I mean, lots of people phone Ask the Answer for lots of different reasons. I think most of the people that call me have either seen one of my television programs, understand about the dreams, and have had a dream that they want me to explain to them. I would think probably 60% of the people that call me are in that bracket. They've had a series of dreams that they can't understand. And I'll be honest, I love to translate them for them. And put their mind at rest, what it really means, what it really is. And a lot of people that I've spoken to over the years, who've called me back, have become interested in their dreams. It isn't only dreams. It's a mistake to think it's only that. There are all sorts of unexplained psychic gifts that people can have. I mean, I've worked with British government people, American government people, some other countries in Europe. I've had a television show in Japan. I mean, I've worked with people that don't speak English. Yet you can get the dream in English and explain it to them. When the person talking to you, who's passed over, couldn't speak English. I'll give you a quick example, if you like. My wife's a Filipino, and her father really didn't know much English. Back in 2005, I think it was probably a Monday night, he was in my dream, and he looked at me and he said, "Son," and again the words are indelible. He said, "You've looked after one Filipino girl for almost 20 years. Will you promise me when I go, you will look after my wife?" And I said, "Ellie, come on." Now, he doesn't speak English, but this is perfect English in, telepathic understanding in English.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's something I think we need to understand more about. And I said, of course, I will look after her. We will all look after her.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens to you. I said, you don't have to worry about it. He said, you mustn't let her buy the tickets for the plane tomorrow. Now, we're not rich. We had saved up for my wife and 3 kids to go back to spend Easter at the Philippines. I was going to be staying here because I had too much work to do. But they were going to go. And he said, you mustn't let her buy the tickets. Now, we would have bought regular, cheapish economy tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Once you bought them, you can't change the date. That's the date you're going. You can't, it's not like an expensive airline ticket where you can, phone them up and change the date. He said, if you buy them tomorrow, my daughter, your wife, won't be able to come to my funeral. And I'm saying, Ellie, stop being silly. He was, what was he, 63 or 4 or something? I said, don't be silly. He said, will you promise me? Anyway, that night I promised him. I said, I promise you, we won't buy the tickets tomorrow. Well, my wife was livid. The time was running out because they will be sold out.
Yeah.
We were something like 6 weeks still to go to Easter. And if you don't grab them, the flights are full. And she was really annoyed that I wouldn't let her buy them.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, let's see what your dad's talking about. I didn't tell her the bit about the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
I just told her that he said we mustn't buy the tickets yet. Next night, I don't think there was anything. So that was Monday night, Tuesday night, nothing. Wednesday night, we're going to do the tickets Thursday morning. He's back in the dream. He said, you mustn't buy them tomorrow. You really, really mustn't buy them tomorrow. And I said, why not, Ellie? Why not? And he said, because I'm going to die suddenly of a heart attack. And it will be before Easter. And your wife, my grandchildren, won't be able to come to my funeral. And I'm thinking, oh, come on, Ellie, you're not going to die. And he said, I am. Wouldn't let her buy the tickets. Real argument on Thursday, I tell you. She was not a happy bunny when we wouldn't, I said, look, let's just give him till the weekend. What's this all about? And again, I haven't told her about, I'm not going to tell her about that.
Yeah.
So just wait and let's see what happens at the weekend. She came home from work on the Friday, and there was a message on the answer phone that her dad had died.
Mm.
So we went and bought the tickets, and she was on the plane on Saturday.
Yeah.
Now, she wouldn't have been able to go to the funeral.
Mm.
Not going to Easter now. She's going now. I mean, if you just think of what happened there.
Yeah.
Forget that he couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
He's guaranteed that his daughter and his 3 grandchildren are at his funeral.
Yeah. Oh, that's sad but sweet as well. That
it is. It's sweet though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a documentary film with a clip of that in it. There was a film a long time ago. I think it was called Premonition with Sandra Bullock.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to interview me before they made the film to talk about my experiences and how it all works. And on the end of the DVD of the film Premonition is an interview with me telling that story.
Wow.
But anyway, yeah, I mean, you've probably gathered already. I could talk
got
to
so
you
many stories.
for a month.
I know.
So many stories.
Oh no, we're gonna have to get you back on another time, Chris. You've got too much to tell us, too much to share, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I really think the important message, if there is one for me to say now, is people who want to know the future. You've got the future that's going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe there are things that are going to happen no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But you've also got to understand that your own actions have to a large extent, play a part in what happens in your life. So it's very important, and I try and explain this to people. People will say to me, am I going to get back with my boyfriend? And I say, well, are you going to do what you need to do for that to happen? And usually there is some balancing and some understanding that both parties need to understand, to take on board, to build the relationships. But I've got to say, a lot of people phone me back and say, do you know what? You were right. Doing that and doing that, we're back together.
Yeah.
One couple even got married again, and I remember this lady. She said to me, we've just got divorced. Will we ever get married again? And I said, well, are you going to do what you need to do it?
So yeah, a reading can help or take action, but can also help them prevent things. There's so much that a reading can offer someone.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to do is a lot of people are inquisitive, and that's why they're calling. But a lot of people have a real hard time of, an emotional situation. And I always try and get those people to get things in balance first. Okay, so let's look at why you think this happened. Why do you think you broke up? And then why do they think the other person? And I suppose it's a bit like marriage guidance counselors. I mean, I've been married nearly 40 years. So, I mean, I've been there, seen it and done most of it.
Yeah. And like you said, it's all well saying this is going to happen, that's going to happen. But actually, getting to the core issue of why things have happened and get that understanding so people can make decisions going forward.
Yeah. I always think that's the most important thing is to, okay, so, you've had an argument, are we going to get back together? Well, are you going to do what you need to do? And usually it's the other person's fault. The way I talk to people, it's usually the other person that didn't understand something. But you really can, a lot of the time, balance the energy, even without talking to the other person. And I've got techniques that I teach people using their own dreams to balance the energy. Because you see, the one thing that this has taught me is that we can talk to the other people in our dreams, even if they're the other side of the planet. And where you've got difficult relationships, if you're upset, which is natural, and you're anxious, which is natural, the other person might misread that. They'll be picking up your feelings and think, oh, well, I'm never going to get forgiven, so there's no point in trying to make it up. And that's the first thing I think people need to decide. Okay, so this is what's happened. Am I going to be able to get past that? Forgive the situation and be back together? Or am I going to try and get back together and bring it up every 5 minutes?
Yeah.
And you do need to have understanding, and you do need to have balance. And I try and help bring that to people with quite a lot of success, I have to say.
Well, I was about to say, you've had incredible amounts of reviews and lots of amazing feedback that we've seen online. And Chris, I mean, I feel I could speak to you for ages. As mentioned, so many interesting subjects that you've talked about on today's podcast. And I think we have to get you back in the future so we can find out more. But that's it. That's all we got time for, I'm afraid, today. You are on Ask the Answer. You are on the phone lines, pin number 500186. So if people have liked the sound of you today, they'd like to have a reading with you on the phone lines, hopefully they'll be able to get a hold of you on there. But you've got other podcasts to do. You're internationally known. You're a busy man.
I've got a 2-hour one at 5 o'clock today.
Well, you better go get some
again, it's a recording. It won't go out until maybe after Christmas. But if anybody goes to the premonitionman.com, there are links to at least 10, I think, of my interviews there. And we'll make sure that your link gets put there.
Brilliant. Well, we'll definitely be checking out all those things.
But I'll certainly be mentioning you tonight on the Grazy TV interview.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you ever so much.
Take
See
care,
you
Chris.
soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy Christmas.
And
Good
you.
New Year. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Ask the Answers podcast. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and save to your library. Remember, there are 100 psychic readers available on our website for readings 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To triple your credits on your first purchase, visit asktheanswer.com and click on the new customer offer banner.